There are Pokemon that look great. There are Pokemon that look dumb. There are Pokemon that you tend to forget about. There are Pokemon you wish you could forget about. And there are Pokemon that are just downright ugly. This was originally going to be a worst Pokemon designs list, but I found that list much harder to do, since it'd be the combination of Pokemon that I not only find hideous, but also designs that I think are bad, boring, based on something silly, and I find that really difficult. For example, Voltorb probably has the laziest Pokemon design, but Grimer technically has a worse design since it's based off sludge, and according to its Pokédex entries, it enters sewer pipes to drink Does the Pokemon with the lazy design have the worst design, or does the Pokemon that literally looks like shit, based off shit, and eats shit, have the worst design? So since it's much easier to make a list of Pokemon that I just think look unappealing, I've decided to make my list of the top 10 ugliest Pokemon. I also want to know I'm basing my picks on how the Pokemon looks right now, and I'll only be judging a Pokemon's past sprite if it looks similar to how it looks now. So for example, Mew's original red and green sprite was pretty hideous, but if you look at Mew now, it's fine. It's actually one of the cuter looking Pokemon. If I was judging on how Pokemon looked in the past, I'd probably put Crobat on the list, since in Pokemon Battle Evolution, Crobat looked pretty horrid. Ugh. Who'd have thought there would have been a Pokemon game where Crobat made Golbat look good? So with all that out of the way, here are my honourable mentions. Lickitung. Licky is probably one of the most hated Pokemon ever. I really don't dislike it as much as other people because it at least looks kinda cute. I mean, look at it here, it looks so happy. Lickitung on the other hand is just ugly. Feebas. Take Magikarp, put it in a microwave for a few minutes, and you get Feebas. Skuntank. It doesn't help that Skuntank is based off a skunk, and a scruffy purple one at that. Conkeldurr. Every day is Red Nose Day for Conkeldurr, also those veins Conkeldurr has are pretty gross. Kyurem White. This is probably the most over-designed Pokemon, and compared to other dragon types, it's definitely not the nicest one to look at. Diggersby. Take Bugs Bunny, have him gain over 200 pounds of fat, have him roll around in what looks like his own shit, and you have Diggersby. And finally, the last Pokemon I'm going to mention is a special mention. Mainly because it's a Pokemon that has appeared on just about every other ugliest Pokemon list I've seen, most of the time being the #1 pick as well, and that Pokemon is Purugly. I honestly think Purugly is hugely undeserving of being called the ugliest Pokemon, mainly because in my opinion, it's not that ugly. I'm not saying it looks good, there are just much uglier Pokemon out there. I mean, do you honestly think that this is uglier than this? I have a theory that if ugly wasn't in Purugly's name, that it wouldn't be so high on other people's ugliest lists. So if you did expect Purugly to be on the list, it isn't. Sorry to disappoint. Anyway, let's finally get on to my list of the top 10 ugliest Pokemon. Number 10. Probopass. First we have Nosepass, which is of course based off the Moai statues of Easter Island, as well as a compass. I've never really disliked Nosepass like a lot of people do, it's just a Pokemon I tend to look over. Then the 4th generation came round and we got its evolution, which is probably one of the most ridiculous designs for a Pokemon I've ever seen. What is this? What are these? What the hell is this? This hat thing it wears is supposed to be based off the Poké wearing Moai statues, which is okay I guess if it's based off of that one. But what makes Nosepass even more crazy looking is its arms that are basically faces with big noses. And this. Well, it's supposed to be metal filings acting as a moustache, or where it's positioned it could also act as pubic... Oh, never mind. Okay, after a second look I found out that it is a moustache, as Bulbapedia says it could be a homage to Mario's. Okay, that's pretty funny. Also, look at that! Its nose was already big enough when it was a Nosepass! Just imagine what Mega Probopass will look like. Like Nosepass, I don't really dislike Probopass, but unfortunately either way you look at it, it's pretty damn ugly. Number 9. Snubbull. To me, Snubbull is basically the Honey Boo Boo of Pokemon. I guess I just had bad memories from it in the anime, being that spoiled dog who'd attack Meowth. Also, for a dog, it's pretty ugly. When the 2nd generation came around, we were getting a Pokemon based off a dog, man's best friend. It'd be the perfect companion. We could have had a super cute dog that evolved into something really awesome looking, but instead we got a dog that was based on a bulldog, probably one of the most unattractive dog breeds. Luckily we got a much better looking dog in the 5th generation, but that was still a long wait. Gramble is slightly less ugly, but it doesn't look like the kind of dog you want to keep and pet. It looks like the kind of dog you'd want to run away from. And weirdly, the gender ratio for Snubbull is 75% chance of being female. Yeah, because this is the kind of Pokemon that a girl, or any other kid in general, would want as a pet. Pokemon like Lillipup and Herdier are cute and cuddly. Snubbull doesn't even look like something you'd want to pet. It just looks ugly. Number 8. Barnacle. I've heard a lot of people say that they find Barnacle to be one of the ugliest Pokemon they've ever seen. Yeah, I kind of see why they think that, but for some reason I find Barnacle to be the more unappealing Pokemon. I guess in some ways I can see Barnacle looking kind of cool. Barnacle just looks like 2 grumpy hand faces stuck in a rock. They don't even look cute. Barnacle at least looks like it could close its face, so you don't have to look at it. Barnacle's hands are never closing. You're forced to look at these 2 faces. These ugly, chicken looking orange cheek faces. Look at it! It almost looks like a flattened chicken face. It doesn't help that their cheeks are always puffed up. In fact, they look like those butt faces from that 1 Billion Mandy episode. Wow. That's how you know these things are ugly. When their faces remind you of characters who have butt faces. No wonder Barnacle always looks grumpy. It has not 1, but 2 ugly butt faces. Number 7. Seismitoad. Good God, what the hell is this? For the most part, the frog-based Pokemon look pretty solid. Froakie and Politoed looking cute, Toxicroak and Poliwrath looking tough, Greninja looking really cool, and then Seismitoad looking like it has giant warts all over its body. It's not even something you'd want to hug. Mega Swampert is a bulky Pokemon that you wouldn't mind snuggling up with. Seismitoad looks like if you touch it, it's going to infect you with something. Okay, that was really mean. But seriously, just look at this thing. I honestly feel kind of sorry for it. It almost looks like it's just accepted its ugliness and is trying its best to move on with its life. Tympole is cute, Palpitoad is kind of derpy, but still kind of cute. Seismitoad is just ugly. Number 6. Muck. Muck is pretty much the same thing that Grimer is. Sludge that looks and smells disgusting, whose diet also consists of shit, and more shit. The difference is, Muck is just bigger and much uglier. I can see some people finding Grimer somewhat cute for a sludge monster, but when you put all nostalgia aside, Muck is just nasty looking. It's basically a hybrid fusion of the Blob, and a Blobfish. There really isn't anything else to it. It's just a pile of sludge with eyes. Pokemon are supposed to be creatures that we'd like to have as pets. Would we really want something that's so toxic it could kill you with its smell? A toxic fluid seeps from its body. The fluid instantly kills plants and trees on okay, that's f***ing gross. While Muck is definitely one of the most, if not the most disgusting Pokemon, it's definitely also one of the ugliest. Number 5. Weezing. It was really hard picking between Muck and Weezing for who's uglier. Both of them are absolutely disgusting, but even though Muck is more disgusting out of the 2 of them, I decided to pick Weezing as the uglier Pokemon for a couple of reasons, no pun intended. Muck is just sludge. Of course something that's sludge is going to be unattractive. Weezing is supposed to be based off a meteorite. That sounds really cool, but instead we got this thing. 2 pretty hideous looking floating heads that are stuck together by a smaller head? Also, this thing has 2 heads. Muck at least only has 1 face. Weezing has 2 ugly mugs to look at. Also, some Pokemon trivia for you that you probably already knew. Koffing was originally known as NY for New York, and Weezing was originally known as LA for Los Angeles, representing both the city's polluted air. Wow. Poor Koffing. It started out as this jolly looking purple puffball that almost looked like it was related to LSP, but then it evolved and became sad because it knew how ugly it had become. Number 4. Stunfisk. What the actual f***? This has to be the most hilarious looking Pokemon ever made. I mean, look at his Gen 6 sprite. It's almost completely flat. Its face is pointing upwards. It literally looks like some sort of fish or bird flattened out. Even the plush for this thing looks kind of weird. This is a perfect example of a Pokemon that I think is ugly, but I also kind of like, just because it looks hilarious. I can't imagine anyone looking at Stunfisk for the first time and holding a straight face. I've always been kind of mixed on Stunfisk's look. I either think it's kinda cute, or just super ugly. And unfortunately for the most part, it's just ugly. So even though I definitely don't dislike Stunfisk, it's still pretty damn ugly. Number 3. Jinx. I don't think anyone likes Jinx. It's on almost every single least favourite Pokemon list I've seen, and for good reason. Either people don't like it because it resembles Blackface too much, which is why its face was changed from black to purple, or they dislike it because it looks nothing like Jinx is supposed to resemble, or they hate Jinx because it's ugly. Even its typing is kinda questionable. It's Psychic type? Okay. It's Ice type? Maybe it's because attractive people are usually referred to as hot, and Jinx is the complete opposite, so they made it an Ice type to show how cold it is, aka how ugly it is. Its Gen 6 sprite is especially scary looking. Holy shit, that is creepy. I mean, people say Mr. Mime is creepy, but... oh god. In fact, no, Mr. Mime's sprite is still terrifying, but Jinx's sprite is still hideous to look at. What more can you say about Jinx that hasn't already been said? It does not look like something you want to travel around with. Like Snubbull, it looks like something that you'd run away from. It's ugly, it's creepy, and it's ugly. Number 2. Slacking. My god, this thing is... what's a word similar to ugly and hideous? I haven't used that. My god, this thing is... unbeautiful. Yes, that's a real word. Anyway, look how beastly this thing is! This is pretty much exactly what I think cavemen look like, and cave women to be honest. Speaking of cave women, Slacking's gender ratio is 50-50, meaning you can have female Slackings. And I checked on Cerebi, there are no gender differences. If you have a Slacking that's female, it's gonna look like this. A pig ugly caveman. The Gen 4 sprite has to be the worst looking one though. It's picking its nose! You can't get much more unattractive than that. At least Jinx doesn't have a nose to pick. Plus, at least Jinx can only be female. Slacking looks like this no matter what gender it is. It's also the laziest Pokemon in the game, actually being called the lazy Pokemon, meaning it's most likely too lazy to bother cleaning itself. So your Slacking not only looks hideous, but its hands are going to be full of boogers. Slackoth actually looks like what it's based off of, a sloth. Vigoroth actually looks kinda cool, but Slacking is one ugly motherfucker. And my pick for the ugliest Pokemon is... Garbodog. Good God. There is nothing attractive about this Pokemon at all. Let's start with the fact that Garbodog is based on garbage. It's based on a garbage bag that's bursting with garbage. That has to be one of the least appealing ideas for a Pokemon. Muk is based on sludge, but you can think of some cool ideas you could do with sludge, like a Clayface idea or a Plasmus monster. But a creature based on a garbage bag with garbage seeping out of the bag has to be one of the most ridiculous ideas for a creature. How are you supposed to make something good out of that? Well, come on, this is Pokemon. They've made bugs look cool, they've made man-made objects look cool. Surely they could do something with Oh my god. Look at this thing! Muk may be ugly, but it's meant to be a sludge monster. In some ways, it looks kinda cool. Garbodog is just ugly. Look at that face! Look at its disfigured arms! What are these puffballs on its head? Just imagine a kid wanting a Pokemon themed birthday cake for their birthday, and they got a Garbodog themed birthday cake. Okay, I've got to stop talking about this thing before I'm sick. No one wants this thing following them around. No one would even want this thing as a plush. Whenever someone says Perugly is the ugliest Pokemon, I instantly point to Garbodog, or any of the 10 Pokemon on the list. Bottom line, Garbodog, in my opinion, is the ugliest Pokemon we've seen so far. Okay, I'd like to apologise if I talk crap about any Pokemon on the list that you happen to like. I don't even hate some of these Pokemon. These are just the Pokemon that I honestly think look the least attractive. But in terms of the Pokemon I think look the best, well, let's save that for another video. As always, be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more Pokemon related videos in the future. And until next time, thanks so much for watching.